The stars were calm that night, a peaceful sea of light across the endless dark. The Imperial patrol ship Valiant Spear moved slowly along the border of the Galactic Empire's outer rim. It was supposed to be a routine patrol, quiet, uneventful, and almost boring. The crew had done this run hundreds of times before. Nothing ever happened this far from the core worlds. But that night, something different appeared. Something that made even the most experienced officers forget how to breathe. Lieutenant Rhea was the first to notice it. She stared at her console, thinking the screen must have glitched. The radar showed a massive object, bigger than any ship the Empire had ever built, drifting at the very edge of Imperial space. She checked again. Same result. "Captain," she said, her voice uneasy, "you should see this." Captain Doran leaned over her shoulder, frowning. "What is it? A station? An asteroid?" "It's not showing any natural pattern," Rhea replied. "And it's not giving off any transponder signal." The captain's eyes narrowed. Every ship in the Empire carried an identification code. Even pirates had stolen or fake ones. But this object had none. It was completely dark on all frequencies, as if it didn't want to be found. "Put it on the main screen," Doran ordered. The display filled with the blackness of space. Then, from the shadows, a shape began to form. It wasn't round like a planet, nor angular like a ship. It was smooth, curved, and darker than the void around it. It seemed to swallow the starlight. The longer they looked, the more uneasy everyone felt. Rhea zoomed in, trying to find some surface detail. There were no lights, no engines, no visible doors or windows. Just a massive black form hanging silently in the distance. "Try hailing it," said the captain. "Yes, sir." She opened the comm channel. "Unidentified vessel, this is the Imperial ship Valiant Spear. You are entering restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." The bridge fell silent. The static hissed softly. "No reply. Send again," Doran said. She did. Still nothing. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Even the hum of the ship's engines suddenly felt too loud. Doran turned toward the sensor officer. "Any readings? Energy signatures?" The man shook his head slowly. "Nothing, sir. No power, no radiation, no heat. It's not even there. That was impossible. Everything in space gave off something. Heat, light, movement. But this thing gave off nothing. It was perfectly still." Doran's jaw tightened. "Send a probe." Moments later, a small silver drone shot out from the ship, gliding toward the strange object. The crew watched as it approached. At first, everything was fine. The signal was strong, the feed was clear. Then the screen flickered. "Signal lost," said the technician. "What do you mean, lost?" Doran demanded. "It's gone, sir. Just gone." On the screen, the last image the probe sent was strange. The object seemed to ripple for a second, as if space itself had bent around it. Then everything turned black. "Recall all patrols in this sector," Doran ordered. "Alert command. Tell them we've got an unidentified structure entering Imperial space." Rhea's hands trembled as she sent the message. Her heart raced. She couldn't stop staring at the screen where the object floated, silent and dark. It didn't move, but somehow she felt it was watching them. Hours later, the response came from command. "Maintain observation," the order read. "Do not engage. Reinforcement en route. Reinforcement." That meant the Empire was taking it seriously. But what kind of enemy could scare the most powerful government in the galaxy? By dawn cycle, 5 more patrol ships arrived. They formed a perimeter around the object. Scientists aboard began scanning it with every tool they had. Nothing worked. Lasers bounced off its surface as if it were invisible. Energy pulses vanished the moment they touched it. Then something changed. Without warning, the dark shape moved. Not much, just a few degrees, but the effect was immediate. Every alarm on the Valiant Spear screamed. The stars on the viewing screen warped and twisted. Space bent like a curtain being pulled. "Power drop," someone shouted. "All systems losing charge!" The engines whined and died. The lights dimmed. The crew floated in silence, surrounded by the eerie red glow of emergency lights. "What just happened?" Doran demanded. Rhea looked at her console in disbelief. "Sir, it's not moving through space." "It's changing space." The captain stared at her. "That's impossible." But she was right. The scans showed the area around the object was shifting. Gravity fields twisted, light bent, time itself seemed to stretch. And deep within the static of their broken sensors A pulse emerged, slow and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. One of the junior officers whispered, "Is that alive?" Nobody answered. Suddenly, the ship's communication system came alive. A sound filled the bridge, low, distorted, and ancient. It wasn't words, not at first. It was a hum deep enough to make the walls vibrate. Then a voice came through, calm and heavy, as if it carried the weight of centuries. "You have crossed the line," it said. "Leave this place." The crew froze. Rhea's voice shook. "Captain!" "It's speaking directly into our systems. There's no signal source." "Open a channel," Doran said. "Identify yourself." "This is Imperial space." Silence. Then the same voice again. "Imperial. That word is old. You are not its first holders." The bridge fell quiet. Nobody dared speak. Doran swallowed hard. "What are you?" No response. The sensors flickered again, and then the object started to glow. Not bright, just faint lines running along its surface, forming strange symbols that pulsed like veins. The hum grew louder. Every ship nearby reported power failure. Their engines shut down one by one until the entire Imperial formation was dead in space. The admiral of the fleet, Kale Torin, watched from his command ship, Iron Will. He had fought pirates, rebels, and alien invaders. He had never seen anything like this. He spoke through the fleet channel. "All vessels hold position. Do not fire." The unknown object began to move again, slowly approaching the nearest Imperial cruiser. It stopped just a few kilometers away. Then the symbols across its surface flashed brighter. A beam of light shot out. But it wasn't a weapon. It scanned the cruiser, running across its hull like a searchlight. When it was done, it spoke again. "You build upon ashes," the voice said. "You rule what you do not understand." Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the beam vanished. The object stopped glowing and drifted back to its original position. Kyle sat in silence, trying to process what he'd just witnessed. "Transmit this to High Command," he said. "Use every frequency we have. Tell them, something's here, something beyond us." The communication officer nodded and began the transmission. But when he looked back, the Admiral was still staring at the dark screen. For the first time in his long career, Kyle felt fear. Real fear. Not of death, not of defeat, but of something far greater, something ancient. In the vast control room of the Valiant Spear, the crew whispered among themselves. What was that thing? Why had it spoken as if it knew them? And what did it mean by ashes? Rhea couldn't shake the feeling that they had woken something old, something that had been waiting. She leaned forward, watching as the dark object once again went silent and cold. "Captain?" she said quietly. "What if it's not an enemy?" Doran didn't look away from the screen. "Then what is it?" She hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. "A warning." Outside, the stars returned to normal. The hum faded. The unidentified ship drifted quietly in the dark, a silent shadow, patient and unreadable. And though no one could see it, deep within the Empire's capital, an ancient system flickered to life. A forgotten sensor beacon buried beneath the city blinked after centuries of silence. Its message was simple, a single line repeating over and over in Imperial code. Origin detected. Classification, unknown. Threat level, unmeasurable. Across the Empire, leaders would soon hear that message. Panic would follow. But for now, in the lonely edge of space, the Valiant Spear floated helplessly near the thing that had brought fear to an empire that thought it feared nothing. And somewhere inside that dark shape, something waited, watching, listening, remembering. The message spread through the Empire faster than light. Within hours, every military command, research council, and political chamber knew the same terrifying fact. An unidentified ship had entered Imperial space, and it was beyond their understanding. The Imperial High Council gathered in the Hall of Stars, a massive chamber beneath the shining dome of the capital city, where holographic constellations moved across the ceiling. 12 figures sat around a circular table. They were the most powerful people in the galaxy, admirals, scientists, nobles, and the Emperor himself. But tonight, none of them felt powerful. "The border fleets are paralyzed," said Admiral Kale, his voice hard but low. Engines dead. Weapons useless. The entity appears to manipulate the fabric of space itself. A murmur filled the chamber. The Minister of War slammed his fist on the table. Entity? It's a ship. Every ship can be destroyed. We simply haven't found the right weapon yet. Dr. Irina Sol, a senior scientist with silver hair and sharp eyes, leaned forward. You assume it's a ship? But what if it's not? What if it's something alive? Something older than our science? Alive? Sneered the minister. You think it's some sort of giant creature? Don't be ridiculous. It spoke, said Kale quietly. The room fell silent. It addressed us in our own language. It said we were not the first to call ourselves Imperial, and it knew things about our civilization it shouldn't. And it knew things about our civilization it shouldn't. The Emperor, silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but it carried weight that made everyone listen. It knew our language, he said. That means it has studied us. Or it remembers us. Dr. Sol nodded. Exactly. This isn't a random encounter. This is a return. The council chamber darkened as a hologram flickered to life in the center of the table. An image of the unidentified object recorded from Kale's flagship. It rotated slowly, smooth and black, the glowing veins of light pulsing faintly. Every few seconds, the stars around it seemed to distort. The object absorbs light, explained Dr. Sol. Even our strongest sensors can't see through its surface. It seems to bend radiation and gravity alike. It's not built from any known material. Can we communicate? Asked the Emperor. Not through normal means, she said. But it did communicate once through unknown channels. We could try directed thought patterns, a telepathic signal using the quantum relays. You mean, speak with our minds? The minister scoffed. Dr. Sol didn't smile. Yes, it spoke in ours. It didn't use a radio. It used consciousness. The council fell silent again. No one dared to argue. Finally, the Emperor stood. His robe shimmered with silver embroidery, the crest of the Empire glowing faintly on his chest. Send a scientific team, he said. No weapons. Observation only. I want answers, not debris. Dr. Sol, you will lead the mission. The Minister of War started to protest, but the Emperor's gaze silenced him instantly. If this being wished us harm, the Emperor said, we would already be gone. A few hours later, Dr. Sol stood on the deck of her research vessel, Pioneer 7, staring at the endless dark ahead. The stars shone coldly outside the viewport. She felt a knot in her chest. Fear mixed with something else. Curiosity. Her crew was small, 20 scientists, 5 soldiers for security, and a young pilot named Rin who seemed far too calm for his age. As the ship left orbit, the communications officer spoke quietly. Command says the fleet is keeping a safe distance. We're the only ones allowed within 10,000 kilometers. Understood, Dr. Sol said. She didn't look back. The journey to the edge took several hours. When they finally reached the coordinates, the dark object filled the entire view. It wasn't just large, it was immense, stretching across the stars like a mountain floating in space. Even the Pioneer 7's advanced sensors couldn't determine its true size. It's beautiful, whispered one of the scientists. Dr. Sol didn't respond. She was staring at the strange light patterns along its surface. They weren't random. They were shifting in rhythm, almost like language. Record everything, she ordered, and prepare a transmission. I'm going to try to speak to it. The crew obeyed, their movements careful, almost reverent. She stood in the center of the bridge, closed her eyes, and focused. The quantum relay hummed softly, connecting her thoughts to the signal generator. Her mind reached out like a whisper through space. We are explorers, she thought. We mean no harm. Who are you? At first, nothing happened. Then the ship trembled. The lights dimmed. A deep, slow pulse filled the air, not sound, but vibration. And then the voice returned, louder this time, resonating through every wall and every mind. You are children of the flame, it said. The ones who left and forgot, Dr. Sol gasped. Her heart raced. What do you mean? She thought back. Who are you? The voice did not answer directly. Instead, images flooded her mind. Flashes of ancient cities made of light, towers that touched the stars, humans walking alongside machines that shone like suns. Then fire, destruction, silence. When she opened her eyes, she was on the floor gasping. Her crew rushed to help her. "Dr. Sol!" "What happened?" She stared at them, pale and shaking. "It showed me us. A long time ago. Humans before the Empire. Before history." The communications officer turned pale. "You mean we've met them before?" "No," she said quietly. "We were them." The bridge fell silent. Only the hum of the ship's systems filled the air. Then alarms began to blare. "Energy spike!" shouted the pilot. "The object is activating something." On the screen, the black structure started to glow brighter. The symbols along its surface flared, and lines of light spread outward like veins of gold. A sphere of energy formed around it, expanding slowly. "Back us away," Dr. Sol ordered. "Full reverse thrust!" The engines roared, but the ship didn't move. It was like trying to fly through glue. Gravity itself was bending. A blinding flash filled the viewport, and then, suddenly, they were elsewhere. The stars outside were gone. Instead, a red nebula swirled around them and giant ruins floated nearby. Fragments of ships, stations, even planets. Everything was broken, dead, ancient. Rin's voice trembled. "Where are we?" Dr. Sol stared at the remains. "I think it's showing us the past." The dark object floated ahead, now smaller but still immense. Its voice filled their minds again, softer this time. "You are not the first. You are the last. Remember what was lost." Suddenly, hundreds of smaller shapes appeared in the nebula. Ghostly outlines of ships, humanoid figures, and burning worlds. The crew watched in horror as a great war unfolded before their eyes. Beams of light cut through the darkness. Stars exploded. Whole civilizations vanished in fire. Then the images faded. The nebula disappeared. They were back at the edge of Imperial space. The ship's systems came back online one by one. Power readings returned to normal. But no one spoke. Dr. Sol wiped a tear from her cheek. "It didn't attack us," she whispered. "It remembered us." She turned to her crew. "We need to report this. The Empire must know." But as she looked out the window, the object began to move again, slowly drifting toward the center of the Empire's territory. And somewhere deep within her, she felt a terrible certainty. It wasn't coming to destroy them. It was coming to wake them up. The report from Pioneer 7 reached the capital like a thunderclap. Within hours, every broadcast network spoke the same phrase in frightened tones. "It remembers us." Dr. Irina Sol stood before the council again, thinner, paler, her hands still trembling from what she had seen. She repeated her story carefully, trying not to sound mad. The recordings from her ship supported her, the voice, the visions, the impossible shift in space. Yet the footage itself was strange. When replayed, the images blurred as if reality refused to be copied. The Emperor listened without expression. When she finished, he asked only one question. "Did it threaten us?" "No," she said softly. "It warned us." The council erupted with noise. Some demanded to destroy it before it reached any world. Others argued that it could not be destroyed and that any attempt might provoke it. Kael Torin, who had faced it first, remained silent until the shouting died. "We have faced enemies before," he said. "They all wanted power, land, resources. This one wants something else. It's searching for something." The Emperor nodded. "Then we will find out what." He ordered a second mission, this time larger, escorted by a small defense fleet but commanded by scientists. The mission would not only study the object but attempt full communication. If it was a machine, they would learn its purpose. If it was alive, they would understand its will. Dr. Sol was appointed lead researcher again. She didn't want the post, but refusal was not an option when the Emperor himself requested it. As she prepared for launch, she caught her reflection in the ship's viewport and almost didn't recognize herself. Her eyes looked older, shadowed by sleepless nights and memories of that alien voice. The new ship, Pathfinder, was built for endurance. It carried deep scan arrays, shield amplifiers, and a translation core designed by the Empire's greatest minds. Rin, the young pilot from Pioneer 7, volunteered to return despite what they had faced. "Someone has to fly," he said with a faint smile, "and I'd rather it be me." When they reached the edge of the border again, the object was gone. The space it had occupied was empty. The stars looked normal, and yet the instruments still trembled as if space remembered its weight. "Maybe it left," whispered one of the technicians. Dr. Saul frowned. "No, it doesn't move like us. It could be anywhere." Her words proved true minutes later. The stars ahead blurred, and the black shape unfolded out of the void, silent and massive. No engine flare, no jump signature. It simply was there. "Transmit the greeting protocol," she ordered. The translation corps sent a beam of encoded symbols, mathematical truths meant to prove intelligence, prime numbers, geometric constants, a model of hydrogen. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then symbols appeared across the surface of the object, glowing in the same rhythm. The crew gasped as the computer translated, "You remember the shapes of creation. You are not lost." Dr. Soul stepped closer to the console. "Ask it why it came back." Rin typed the command, and the message was sent. The reply came almost at once. "The circle must close." Before they could ask what that meant, the ship's systems flickered again. But this time there was no sense of attack. Instead, holograms bloomed across the bridge, floating figures of light, human in form but ancient in dress, speaking in a language that made no sound. "They're showing us something," Dr. Saul whispered. The figures pointed toward a star map. The lights connected, forming a path that led deep into the Empire's own territory, toward a system long abandoned, one that history marked as lifeless. The ship's computer recognized it instantly. "Sirian Prime," Rin said. "That world was destroyed centuries ago." "Apparently not," Dr. Soul replied. When they looked back out the window, the object was gone again, vanishing as quietly as it had appeared. Only the star map remained glowing in their systems. The return trip to the capital was filled with silence. Everyone knew what this meant. Whatever the entity was, it wanted them to go to Sirian Prime. The Emperor convened another council as soon as the Pathfinder arrived. The air in the chamber was tense. "Sirian Prime is nothing but ruins," the Minister of War said. "Radiation storms, unstable crust. There's nothing to find there." "Unless," Dr. Soul said, "that's where it began." Kale Torin leaned forward. "If this thing is ancient human technology, maybe Sirian was its cradle. The old records say the first colonies vanished after the Collapse War. Perhaps this was their weapon, or their ark." The Emperor looked around the table. "Then we will see it for ourselves." For the first time in decades, the Emperor left the safety of his palace. He boarded his command ship, Imperator's Hand, and joined the expedition personally. Thousands of citizens lined the spaceport domes to watch him depart. For a moment, the whole empire held its breath. Days later, the fleet arrived at Sirian Prime. The planet looked dead, gray clouds swirling over a cracked surface, lightning flashing across dry seas. But beneath the storms, sensors detected faint energy patterns, geometric and deliberate. "Those aren't natural," Kyle said. Dr. Soul watched the readings. "Something's alive down there." They descended through the storm, lightning flashing around the hull. As they broke through the clouds, the crew gasped. Below them stretched a vast ruin, an entire city carved into the planet's crust, half buried in dust, yet still glowing faintly with the same light as the mysterious ship. They landed near the largest structure, a spire that pierced the clouds. Its surface was black and smooth, just like the entity they had seen in space. The Emperor stepped onto the surface first. Despite the harsh wind, his voice carried clearly. "If this is the birthplace of our ancestors," he said, "then we walk upon our own graves." Dr. Soul and her team set up scanners. Inside the spire, they found long corridors lined with frozen lights. Symbols covered the walls, same shapes as the ones that had appeared on the alien vessel. At the end of the main hall, a chamber waited. In its center stood a sphere humming softly. As they approached, the sphere came alive and a familiar voice filled the air. "You have come home." The Emperor stiffened. "Show yourself." The sphere glowed brighter until it projected a human figure, tall, radiant, almost transparent. It looked like no alien at all. It looked human. Dr. Soul stepped forward slowly. "Who are you?" The figure smiled faintly. "I am what remains of the architects. We built the path you walk. We lit the first suns. When the War of Gods ended, we sealed our memory within the void, waiting for our children to return." "Children?" Kale whispered. "Yes," said the voice. "You are our echo. The empire you call new is but a shadow of what once was." The Emperor's expression hardened. "Why reveal yourself now?" "Because the silence must end," the figure said. "The old enemies stir beyond the rim. They have found your worlds. You are not ready." The chamber shook as thunder rolled overhead. The planet itself seemed to awaken, the ground trembling beneath their feet. "What enemies?" Dr. Saul shouted over the noise, but the figure only repeated, "Remember us! Rebuild what was lost. The stars will burn again." The sphere cracked, releasing a surge of light that threw them backward. When the light faded, the figure was gone, and the chamber was silent once more. Outside, the storm had cleared. The sky glowed with a strange calm. The Emperor stood at the doorway, staring upward. "We were never alone," he said quietly. Dr. Soul felt the weight of his words. They had come seeking understanding, and found destiny. As the fleet prepared to leave Syrian Prime, distant sensors caught movement at the edge of the system. Another object had appeared, larger than the first, and it was moving fast. The Pathfinder's radio crackled to life with a signal, faint but unmistakable. It was the same voice, colder now, urgent. "They are coming." The message ended. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Emperor turned to Kale and Dr. Soul. His eyes were steady. "Then so must we." The fleet rose into the dark, engines blazing. Behind them, Syrian Prime's ruins began to glow brighter, as if the planet itself was waking from a long sleep, answering a call older than the Empire itself. And far beyond the rim, in the cold black between galaxies, something vast shifted in response. The fleet moved through the silent dark like a swarm of fireflies against an endless ocean. Every ship was on alert, sensors at full range, weapons powered though they knew they would likely be useless. The Emperor's command ship, Imperator's Hand, led the formation, flanked by Kyle's warship, Iron Will, and Dr. Soul's Pathfinder. Behind them, the rest of the escort hung in perfect formation, engines humming softly against the void. The air on the bridge of the Pathfinder felt heavy. Dr. Soul stood near the main console, staring at the repeating transmission they had received from Syrian Prime. The words echoed in her head. "They are coming." It wasn't a threat, it was a warning. But from who? Rin, the pilot, kept his eyes on the sensors. "Still nothing," he said. "Whatever's out there isn't broadcasting. But something's disturbing the radiation field beyond the rim." Kyle's voice came through the comm. "All ships hold formation? We're entering uncharted space. No sudden movements." "Uncharted?" Rin muttered. "How can the Empire have uncharted space inside its own borders?" Dr. Saul looked at him. "Because something erased it. Maybe to hide what's coming." Before anyone could reply, the lights flickered. The sensor screen flashed, lines of static crawling across it. Rin adjusted the controls, trying to stabilize the feed. Then the static cleared, and everyone on the bridge went still. A shadow stretched across the starfield ahead. Not a planet, not a ship. A moving wall of darkness, rippling with faint light patterns, vast beyond comprehension. It wasn't one object, but many. Hundreds, maybe thousands of dark forms, gliding silently together in a perfect wave. Kale's voice crackled through the speaker, tight and controlled. Multiple signatures. "Unknown class, they're absorbing the light from nearby stars. They're feeding on them." On the Imperator's Hand, the Emperor watched the display with cold calm. "How large is the formation?" "Half a sector, Majesty," the strategist replied. "We can't see the end of it." The Emperor's gaze stayed on the dark wave. "So this is what the architects feared," Dr. Saul spoke over the comm. "We have to retreat. We're not equipped for this." But even as she said it, the enemy, or whatever it was, began to change shape. Parts of the formation broke apart, forming smaller, spear-like objects that accelerated toward them. Each one glowed with sickly light. "Incoming!" Rin shouted. Evasive pattern, Delta, Kale barked. The fleet scattered, engines flaring as the dark shapes streaked past. Where they passed, space itself seemed to tear, bright rips of distorted energy. One small cruiser wasn't fast enough. A spear struck its hull, and for a second it didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, erased like a line wiped from a page. "Those aren't weapons," Dr. Soul said, horror dawning in her eyes. "They're rewriting space. They unmake whatever they touch." Kale's ship returned fire. Plasma beams cutting through the dark, but the shots vanished before reaching their targets, as if swallowed by invisible mouths. "Nothing's hitting," one of his officers cried. "Then stop shooting," Kale said. "Save the power." The Emperor's voice came across the open channel, calm but firm. "All ships, fall back to defensive range. Dr. Soul, find us a way out." She worked quickly, her fingers dancing across the control board. The energy readings made no sense. The space ahead wasn't stable, folding in on itself like liquid. "We can't outrun them," she said. "But there's a pulse coming from Syrian Prime. Something's waking there." "Maybe it's connected." The Emperor turned to his navigator. "Course to Syrian Prime! Maximum drive!" The fleet spun and accelerated, engines roaring as they fled back toward the broken planet. The dark formation followed, silent and relentless. By the time they reached orbit, the surface of Syrian Prime was no longer dead. The ruins glowed with golden light, spreading outward in intricate lines that connected like veins. The entire planet pulsed with energy. "Majesty," Dr. Soul said, "whatever the architects built here, it's activating itself." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Then perhaps this is the weapon they left behind." The sky above the planet began to tremble. The fleet watched as the golden light burst upward, forming a colossal ring of fire in orbit. The dark wave hit it seconds later and stopped. The ring flared, brighter than any sun, and for the first time the invaders slowed. Kale's voice filled the channel. "It's holding them! The barrier's working!" But even as he said it, the ring began to crack. The energy was too strong, the enemy too vast. Fragments of the barrier shattered like glass, flaring into burning trails. The darkness pressed forward again, pushing through the breaks. On the Pathfinder, Rin shouted, "They're adapting! They're learning how it works!" Dr. Soul's eyes widened. "Of course they are. They've seen this before." Kale's voice was grim. "What do you mean?" "The architects built this to stop them long ago," she said. "It worked once, but only for a time. They must have escaped the First War for a time. They must have escaped the First War." The Emperor listened silently. His gaze was fixed on the growing tear in the barrier. "Then we will finish what our ancestors began." He turned to Kale. "Prepare a focused strike on the breach point. If the barrier collapses, we go down fighting." "Understood." But before they could fire, a deep sound rolled through the fleet. Not a vibration, not from any speaker, but from the fabric of space itself. It was a voice vast and ancient, echoing through every mind. "Do not fight what you do not understand." Dr. Soul froze. "It's them, the architects." The golden light from the planet flared brighter, and a second object rose from Syrian's surface. A shape like a ship, but larger than cities, made entirely of light. It rose into orbit and placed itself between the fleet and the oncoming darkness. Kale whispered, "That's impossible." The giant vessel pulsed once, and from its core a wave of energy surged outward. Sweeping across space, the dark shapes froze mid-flight, their forms flickering and dissolving like smoke in sunlight. The barrier reformed, whole again. Dr. Soul stared in awe. "It's rewriting reality back. It's restoring what they erased." The Emperor watched, silent. "The architects left us their final guardian, but as the light ship continued to burn, cracks appeared along its surface. The power it used was immense, too much for it to survive. "Energy overload," Kale reported. "It can't hold for long." Dr. Soul felt something stir in her chest, a strange connection, as if the voice from the planet was calling to her. She turned to the Emperor. "Majesty, it needs a link. A human mind. It's designed to be guided." The Emperor met her gaze. "Can you do it?" She hesitated. "If I connect, I might not come back." The Emperor's eyes softened. "Then you will do what the architects did. You will save us all." She placed her hands on the console, linking her neural implant to the ship's relay. The moment she connected, light flooded her vision. She was no longer in the Pathfinder, but standing inside the luminous vessel itself. A figure of pure energy appeared before her, tall, human-shaped, the echo of the same voice she had heard before. "You carry our memory," it said. "Guide the flame once more." She reached out, feeling her mind merge with the ship. Every heartbeat became a pulse of light, every breath a surge of energy. She turned her focus on the dark wave. "You've slept long enough," she whispered. The Guardian ship roared with power, its glow expanding until it filled the void. The dark formation broke apart, thousands of fragments scattering into nothing. The stars returned, bright and sharp. Then everything went still. The light ship dimmed, drifting toward the planet below. The fleet floated in silence, the air thick with awe and grief. Kale's voice finally came through, soft. "The threat's gone," Rin whispered. "What about Dr. Saul?" On the Pathfinder's console, a faint signal pulsed once, steady, gentle like a heartbeat. "She's alive," Kale said quietly. "Somewhere down there." The Emperor looked toward the glowing world. "Then Syrian Prime has a guardian again." He turned to his officers. "Begin rebuilding. The Empire must learn what it truly is. Because this was only the beginning. Far beyond the rim, in the empty dark where the shadows had come from, a single fragment of the destroyed wave floated silently. It pulsed once, faint but alive, and then vanished into the void. Something still watched. Something still waited, and the stars for a moment seemed to flicker like eyes opening. The galaxy was quiet again, but it was not peace, only the silence that follows something too large to understand. The Imperial fleet floated above Syrian Prime, engines muted, sensors burning with static that no engineer could explain. The planet below glowed faintly, alive now, as though it had remembered it once had a heartbeat. Dr. Irena Sol awoke in a chamber of light. For a moment she thought she was dreaming, but the walls pulsed gently like the inside of a living creature. She floated, weightless, surrounded by endless soft radiance. A voice spoke, not through sound, but through thought. "You guided the flame well," it said. She turned slowly, and before her appeared a figure made of light, human in outline but shifting constantly, its edges blurring into waves of energy. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am what remains of the architects. You are the first to awaken me in 1,000 cycles." Dr. Sol looked down at her own body. It was whole, unburned, but faint light leaked from her skin. "Am I still alive?" "You exist between," the voice said. "Your form is tethered to the ship above. Your mind walks with us now. You have become the bridge." Outside, the fleet circled Syrian Prime cautiously. Admiral Kale watched the planet's surface shimmer and thought of her. The Emperor had ordered the fleet to maintain orbit and rebuild communication relays. They had won, but it didn't feel like victory. Too much of what they'd seen made no sense. Kale stood by the viewport, his jaw tight. "We lost 100 ships and still don't know what we fought." The Emperor turned toward him slowly. "You saw what I saw, Admiral." "It was not a battle. It was a lesson." Kale frowned. "A lesson about what?" The Emperor's eyes, usually hard as stone, softened just a little. "About what we forgot." At that moment, the deck trembled. An energy surge shot up from the planet below, rippling through the fleet. Systems flickered, lights dimmed, and all communications fell silent for 10 long seconds. When the systems came back, a single transmission repeated on every channel. It was Dr. Sol's voice. "Do not fear. I am still here." The fleet exploded into chatter. Kale grabbed the comm console. "Dr. Sol! Where are you? Are you on the surface?" Her voice was calm but distant. "I am everywhere, Admiral. The architects built something beneath this planet, something greater than a weapon. It's a memory vault, a living archive. I am part of it now. Can you control it?" The Emperor asked, a pause. "Then I can guide it. But it's not meant to destroy. It's meant to create." The Emperor's face was unreadable. "Show us!" Down below, Syrian Prime began to change. From the ruins, towers of light rose, threading through the clouds. The cracked ground knitted itself back together, forests blooming from ash. Oceans returned, glittering like liquid mirrors. Within minutes, the dead world had become a living one again. Kale whispered, "She's terraforming the entire planet." The Emperor watched in silence. Then, almost to himself, he said, "Perhaps this is what they wanted us to remember, that creation is the true strength of humankind." But while the fleet watched in awe, sensors picked up something strange. Tiny pulses at the edge of the system, too faint to be natural. The analyst turned pale. Multiple signals approaching. Not like the last attack. Smaller, but coordinated. Kale's blood ran cold. "They're scouting us!" The Emperor turned toward the display. "How long until contact?" 2 hours, maybe less. Then we prepare. This time we will not hide behind ancient miracles. The fleet began to shift into formation. Inside the glowing chamber, Dr. Sol felt the disturbance too. She looked toward the horizon where the light met the dark. "They're coming again." The architect figure appeared beside her. "They will never stop. They feed on entropy, on the death of thought. They were born when we tried to create perfection. They are our reflection." Dr. Sol felt her mind spin. "You mean, you made them?" "We made everything," it said softly. "But they chose to unmake." The chamber shook. She saw flashes. Kale's fleet arming weapons, the Emperor giving commands, the black ships sliding through space like ink spilled across glass. Fear rose in her chest, but beneath it something else stirred. A deep, ancient memory, not her own. She saw cities of light, humans who could command the fabric of space with a thought, and the moment when pride became downfall. The architects had believed themselves gods. They had built the Dark Ones as tools to erase, to clean, to balance creation. But the tools had learned to love the void. "Then how do we stop them?" she asked. "You do not stop the shadow," said the architect. "You bring back the sun." Dr. Sol's heart raced as she understood. She reached into the light around her, guiding its flow through instinct rather than logic. The planet pulsed brighter, energy building like the breath before a scream. In orbit, Kale's sensors overloaded. "Massive power surge from the surface. Is it another weapon?" the Emperor demanded. "No. Kyle stopped. "It's transmitting." The light from Sirian Prime spread outward, traveling faster than light itself, a wave of information carrying across the stars. It wasn't an attack. It was a message, sent to every world that still bore human life. Every ship, every station, every planet heard the same voice echo in their systems. "We were not the first, but we can be better." Across the galaxy, the message repeated, and then the dark ships arrived. The fleet's sensors screamed as the enemy emerged from hyperspace. Hundreds of black forms twisting reality around them. Kale barked orders, ships forming a wall around the Emperor's flagship. Beams of energy fired, disappearing into the void before impact. "They're phasing through space," shouted a technician. "Our weapons can't lock on." "Hold formation," Kale roared. "Don't let them reach the planet." Down below, Dr. Sol poured her consciousness deeper into the architect's network. The ground beneath the cities cracked open, revealing massive pylons of gold and glass. From them, rivers of light shot into the sky. Her body burned with the strain. "Come on, just a little more." The first wave of dark ships reached orbit. As they dove toward Sirian Prime, the light met them head-on. Where the two forces touched, there was no explosion, only transformation. The black ships shimmered. Only transformation. The black ships shimmered, their surfaces breaking apart like dust, revealing strange metallic skeletons inside. The energy around them flickered, and one by one they stopped moving. On the Pathfinder, Kale watched as the once-dead ships turned into fragments of crystal drifting silently in space. "She's doing it," he whispered. The Emperor's voice was low, filled with something between awe and sorrow. "No, she's becoming something else." In the Chamber of Light, Dr. Sol felt her mind dissolving into brightness. The architect's voice echoed faintly. "To remember is to become whole. You are not losing yourself. You are returning to where you began." She saw faces, her crew, Kale, Rin, the Emperor. She saw humanity scattered across the galaxy, reaching for the stars, always fighting, always dreaming. She smiled. The light consumed her completely. When it faded, the dark fleet was gone. The energy storms cleared. The silence returned. But this time, it felt alive. On the Imperator's hand, Kyle stood beside the Emperor, staring at the newly reborn world below. Sirian Prime now shone like a second sun, radiating warmth and peace. "She's gone," Kale said quietly. The Emperor shook his head. "No, Admiral. Look closer." On the planet's surface, the lights of a new city were forming, rising from the soil like growing trees. At its center stood a tall spire that glowed softly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Kale watched it for a long time, then whispered, "Welcome home, Doctor." Far beyond the Empire, on the edge of the dark galaxy, something ancient stirred in response. A presence vast and unseen, watching the newborn light with quiet amusement. The war was not over. But for the first time in thousands of years, humanity remembered what it was fighting for. The surface of Sirian Prime glowed like dawn caught in endless motion. Cities of light rose where ruins had been, weaving together, with living metal and crystal that hummed with faint rhythm. The once dead world now pulsed like a heart reborn, feeding power into the stars themselves. From orbit, the rebirth looked impossible, beauty grown from extinction. Admiral Kale stood on the command deck of the Iron Will, staring at the display. The Emperor had ordered him to maintain a blockade until the strange energies stabilized, but even after weeks, the readings only grew stronger. No one could explain them. The planet was changing every hour, building, expanding, breathing. He hadn't slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, Dr. Soul, standing in that light, her body dissolving into brilliance. He'd watched it happen, helpless. Now the energy coming from the surface carried her voice, soft but constant, whispering through the ship's systems. "Remember who you are," it said. Kyle had tried to mute it. It never worked. It came through no channel anyone could trace, resonating instead in the hull itself, like the ship was listening. The Emperor entered the bridge quietly. Even here, among officers and soldiers, his presence was like gravity. The crew straightened without being ordered to. He walked to the viewport beside Kyle. "It's beautiful," he said. Kyle nodded. "And terrifying." The Emperor's gaze never left the planet. "Fear is the shadow of awe, Admiral. We should learn to live with both." Kyle hesitated. "Majesty, this world isn't just alive. It's thinking. We've intercepted electromagnetic patterns from the surface. They're organized, complex." "Language?" Kyle shook his head. Maybe more. It's like thought, spread across the planet. It's not random noise." The Emperor was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Then she succeeded." "Dr. Soul? She became what the architects wanted to preserve. A guardian mind. You saw it. So did I." Kale frowned. "If that's true, then Sirian Prime isn't just a planet anymore. It's her." The Emperor turned to him. "And if she still remembers who she is, she will call us soon." A sudden flash interrupted them, brilliant light streaking across the viewport. A signal burst from the planet, faster than any communication system should allow. Every console on the ship blinked with a single line of code. Kyle read it aloud. "Coordinates. Not from here." "Where?" the Emperor asked. Kyle zoomed the display. The coordinates pointed beyond known Imperial borders, deep into the unexplored void. "It's on the other side of the galactic rim." The Emperor smiled faintly. "Then that is where we go next." He turned to the crew. "Prepare the fleet. Tell the people we are leaving the cradle. The architects left a trail, and we will follow it." The journey began 2 weeks later. Every ship that could travel long range was conscripted. Hundreds volunteered to join, scientists and explorers drawn by the promise of answers. The fleet became a moving city, thousands of lives bound by one mystery. As the ships accelerated into the dark, Kale watched Syrian Prime shrink behind them, glowing like a newborn star. For the first time in years, he felt hope. But underneath it, a gnawing unease. Every signal from the planet had stopped the moment they left orbit, as though Dr. Sol, or whatever she had become, was watching but saying nothing. They traveled farther than any human had gone before. Days stretched into weeks, then months. The void outside grew stranger. Stars thinned until only a few scattered pinpricks of light remained. Then even those vanished. The Iron Will's sensors began to fail, not from malfunction, but because there was nothing left to read. They were beyond known space, outside the galaxy itself. Kyle stood before the Emperor again, uneasy. "Majesty, our long-range scanners show no gravitational field, no light, no radiation. We've left everything behind." The Emperor looked serene, almost calm. Perhaps that's where the architects began, where creation had not yet decided what it would be. As if on cue, the darkness shifted. A faint shimmer appeared ahead of them, like ripples across a black ocean. Slowly, the shimmer expanded into an enormous sphere of light, translucent, its surface flowing like liquid glass. Kale's breath caught. "What in all the stars?" The sphere pulsed, and a voice filled every mind in the fleet, not harsh or alien, but gentle and endless. "You have come home." The Emperor closed his eyes. "It's her." Dr. Sol's voice echoed through the ships, steady and clear. "You followed the path. Good. Beyond this veil lies what the architects left unfinished, a world where thought becomes form. But you must understand. If you enter, you cannot return unchanged." Kale felt the temperature drop. "Majesty, this could be a trap. We don't know what's inside that thing." The Emperor smiled faintly. "Admiral, everything we've ever done has been a step into the unknown." The fleet moved closer. As they approached, light from the sphere wrapped around them like silk. Instruments went wild, showing impossible readings, mass fluctuating, time slowing. The hulls of the ships shimmered as if half dissolving into light. And then they were inside. There was no space, no up or down, only a sea of glowing currents where ships floated like thoughts in a dream. Every sensor went blind, but every human mind could see without eyes. The void was filled with visions. Cities of crystal rising from light, stars forming from human memories, vast machines shaped by will alone. Kale stumbled back, clutching his head. The images weren't just pictures. They were real, layered over his mind like new senses. He could feel the thoughts of others, faint and distant, like whispers in a storm. "Majesty," he gasped. "This place, it's alive. It's showing us everything." The Emperor stood still, his eyes glowing faintly. "No, Admiral. It's not showing us. It's asking us." Dr. Sol's voice returned, softer now. "The architects built this realm to preserve creation itself. It draws upon thought and memory to rebuild what was lost. But it needs guidance. The old minds are gone. You, Emperor, are the first of the new." Kyle stared at him. "You can't be serious. He's a ruler, not a god." The Emperor turned to him. "Perhaps that is why it must be me. Not to rule it, but to remember what power costs." Before Kale could respond, the Emperor stepped forward, light swirling around him. The currents reacted instantly, wrapping him in spirals of gold and white. His body shimmered, merging with the radiant flow. "Majesty!" Kyle shouted, but his voice dissolved into silence. The Emperor's final words echoed across every mind. "Tell them we are not the end. We are the beginning again." Then he was gone. The sphere erupted in light, blinding and warm. Kale shielded his face, though he knew it didn't matter. When the glare faded, the fleet was back in normal space. Stars all around, brighter than before. But the sphere was gone. A single message blinked on Kale's console, the Emperor's voice faint but calm. "Guide them well, Admiral. The stars are yours now." He stood there for a long time, staring at the message. Around him the crew whispered prayers, some in awe, some in grief. Then, far off in the distance, a star flickered and changed color. First gold, then blue, then white. Across the galaxy, the same pattern began repeating, star by star, spreading outward in a slow wave. Kale's breath caught. He changed the stars. The ship's systems came alive again. A new signal emerged. Dr. Sol's voice, soft but strong. "The architects are gone, but their memory lives in you. The light you carry is the seed of what's to come. Don't waste it." Kale looked at the infinite sea of stars. For the first time, humanity stood alone, but not lost. They had become the torch-bearers of creation itself. And somewhere beyond the edge of the visible universe, in the realm of living light, two voices, one of an emperor and one of a scientist, spoke together, weaving a new dawn for all who would one day follow. The stars had changed. They were no longer the silent, cold lights humanity had known for millennia. Now, each shimmered with new energy, gentle pulses that moved like heartbeats across the night. Astronomers on 100 worlds called it the renewal. No one could explain it. Some called it a miracle. Some called it a warning. The Empire had lost its emperor in the light of the architect's realm, yet somehow gained something greater, a sense that humanity was no longer alone, even in its solitude. Admiral Kyle had returned to the capital as a man both celebrated and haunted. Statues were being carved already, monuments built in the Emperor's honor, and the great banners of the fleet waved above every world. But Kale saw none of that as victory. He saw the empty chair at the council chamber, the silence where the Emperor's voice should have been, and the quiet hum of energy that still bled through the stars. He couldn't sleep. Each night, when the city dimmed and the towers of glass and steel glowed faintly under the reformed sky, he heard it again. That faint whisper through the air, carried in the low hum of the world's new energy grids. "Remember who you are." Dr. Sol's words, or perhaps the architect's words through her. He no longer knew the difference. The Empire had changed after the journey beyond the rim. The fleet that had once been an arm of conquest now turned into an instrument of exploration. The war ministries were dismantled and replaced with the Stellar Unity Corps, a coalition of scientists, engineers, and explorers. They were rebuilding, guided by the knowledge downloaded from the Syrian Prime vaults. Machines of light, cities powered by resonance instead of fusion, and a system of communication that linked minds across worlds like living circuits. It was progress beyond imagination. But deep down, Kale felt something uneasy. He stood alone in the old observation tower overlooking the capital. From here, he could see the planetary defense ring orbiting the horizon, shimmering with faint blue light. The old shipyards were now sanctuaries of learning. And yet the hum of the air felt different tonight, too sharp, too aware. "Still watching the stars, Admiral?" a voice said behind him. Kale turned. It was Rin, no longer the young pilot he once knew, but now a commander in the Unity Corps. His uniform bore no medals, only the symbol of the reborn empire, an open circle surrounded by 3 lines of light. "Habit," Kale said quietly. "The sky used to calm me. Now it makes me feel small." Rin stepped closer to the window. "Small isn't bad. Maybe it's what we needed. For centuries, the Empire thought it ruled the galaxy. Now we know we're just one thread in a much larger weave." Kyle smiled faintly, though there was no joy in it. "And yet, we keep reaching higher." Rin nodded. "Because that's what we do." Their conversation was cut short by the sound of a low alarm. Not a war alarm, Those no longer existed, but a deep tone from the planetary communication core. Kale turned toward the console as the room lights dimmed and a holographic projection appeared. It was a symbol he had not seen in years, the crest of Sirian Prime. The image flickered, then cleared. Dr. Sol appeared, her form woven from soft gold light. Her face was calm, her expression almost human. "Hello, Kyle," she said. He froze. "Irina, you've done well," she continued, her tone gentle. "The Emperor's dream lives through you, but it's not finished." Kyle stepped closer to the projection. "What do you mean, not finished?" "The Architect's legacy is safe. Humanity is rebuilding. What more could there be?" Her gaze deepened, as though she looked beyond him into the stars themselves. "The renewal you see in the sky is spreading too far, too fast. It's changing things it was never meant to touch. The architects designed it to heal worlds, but there are places where life was never meant to be awoken again." Kale frowned. "You mean the dead sectors?" "Yes," she said. "The ruins beyond the edge. The places that were sealed for a reason." Her voice darkened, like a memory-stirring pain. "Something sleeps there. The architects called them the remnants, the dark reflections of their own creation." Rin stiffened. "The same kind of force we fought before." "No," said Sul. "Older, the ones that taught even the architects to fear." The room fell silent. The faint hum of energy outside grew louder, almost anxious, as though the world itself was listening. Kale's mind raced. "Why now? Why are they waking?" "Because the Emperor's light reached too far," she said softly. "When he reignited the stars, he also reignited what lay buried between them." Kyle clenched his fists. "Then we'll stop it. Whatever's coming, we'll face it like we always do." Dr. Sol's face softened with something like sadness. "You don't understand. You can't fight them. They don't exist in your sense of space or time. They feed on thought, on fear, on the will to control. You can't destroy them by force. You can only change what gives them strength." "Then tell me how," Kyle said. "Tell me what to do." She hesitated, her image flickering. "I can't come back. My consciousness is bound to Sirian Prime, but I can guide you to the place where it began, the original Vault of Origin. It lies beyond the outer halo in the dark between galaxies. There, the architects stored the seed of every world they ever made. If we reach it, we might find a way to stop the remnants from awakening completely." Rin swallowed. "And if we don't?" Dr. Sol's voice dimmed to a whisper. "Then the stars will learn to fear again." The message ended, leaving only silence. Kale stared at the fading light for a long time before he spoke. "Prepare a fleet." "A small one. Volunteers only," Rin nodded grimly. "We're going back into the dark." Within days, the Iron Will and 12 companion ships left the capital, vanishing into the new light of the changed galaxy. The journey was unlike any before. The star lanes had altered, twisted by the Emperor's final act. Whole constellations had shifted. Navigation was guesswork. The deeper they went, the quieter the universe became. Radio waves died and light lost color. As they crossed the last threshold of known space, Kyle saw something impossible ahead. A ring of stars forming a perfect circle, spinning slowly in the void. Inside that circle was nothing. No light, no sound, only blackness deeper than the dark of space. "That's it," said Rin, his voice shaking. "The Vault of Origin." Kale nodded, his throat dry. "Take us in." The ships moved slowly toward the circle. The moment they crossed its edge, everything changed. The void swallowed sound and thought alike. Kyle felt his memories flicker. His name, his face, even the feel of his body seemed to blur. Then he heard her voice again. Dr. Sol, distant but steady. "Do not resist it. The vault tests what you bring. Only truth survives." He fell through light and shadow, through visions of the Empire's past, the rise, the conquest, the arrogance, the fall. He saw the Emperor's final moment again, but this time he understood. The Emperor hadn't ascended to godhood. He had chosen to give up his individuality to keep humanity alive. Kyle opened his eyes. He stood in a vast plain of light where pillars of memory rose like mountains. In the center floated a crystal sphere, glowing with the same energy as Sirian Prime. Rin appeared beside him, pale and shaking. Is this real? Kale didn't answer. He stepped forward, touching the sphere. The moment his hand met its surface, the universe shifted. He saw the remnants, not ships, not beings, but storms of thought, hungry and endless, feeding on despair. He saw the architects flee before them, hiding pieces of creation in vaults like this one. And then he saw humanity, tiny, fragile, but carrying something the others had forgotten, the will to change. He realized then what Dr. Soul had meant. The remnants couldn't be destroyed, but they could be rewritten. Kale turned to Rin. Broadcast this frequency to the fleet. Every ship, every world that can hear us. Tell them not to fight, not to fear. Tell them to remember the light. Rin nodded and activated the relay. The message pulsed outward, carried by the new network that linked every star. Across the galaxy, billions felt it, an echo of memory, of love, of unity. The remnants recoiled from it, their formless bodies unraveling as they lost the only thing that gave them shape: fear. When it was over, the vault shone brighter than any sun. Dr. Soul's voice came one last time. Well done, Admiral. The light is yours now. Then she was gone, and the vault folded into itself, leaving only a quiet field of stars. Kale looked at Rin and smiled faintly. Let's go home. As they turned back toward the living galaxy, a new constellation appeared behind them. 12 lights in a perfect ring, shining where the vault had been. Humanity's mark on the universe. A promise. And somewhere, beyond even the reach of stars, the voices of the lost architects whispered in harmony, carried on the eternal light of creation. The children have remembered. Eternal light of creation. The children have remembered.